All right, so a whole bunch of information to share. First of all, the gate tonight was $1,546,732 USD, with 10,787 people in the building, sold out, 16th consecutive sellout with full capacity, and a Singapore indoor stadium sporting event gate record. Fight of the night was the main event. The performance bonuses go to all those who had finishes: Silvana Mahashate, Jack Della, Jake Matthews, and Zheng Wei Li. The Crypto.com bonuses, first bonus for $30,000 in Bitcoin was Shevchenko. Second bonus for $20,000 in Bitcoin was Yuri. And $10,000 worth of Bitcoin for Zheng Wei Li. It sounds like, Mike, you got a question.
Yeah, just has this event surpassed expectations? I mean, the fight's delivered, obviously a full crowd and everything. Just give us your thoughts on what we saw tonight in a spectacular fight card.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we can't ever control what goes on inside the octagon. It is a massive plus when you get a card like that. It delivered from bottom all the way to top. It was a great night from the perspective of how the event was embraced by fans. Right, I think first fight in, sort of 7:15, 7:20, we had, I think, close to 3,000 people already in the building. A lot of Australians in the building early. But I think first and foremost, massive week with Road to UFC, all the activations that went on during the week, capped off by the fight this evening or this morning and this afternoon, which was absolutely thrilling.
And just to clarify, does Yuri get a performance bonus as well with the finish?
Yuri gets the fight of the night bonus, and then everyone else.
Every other finish.
Yeah, gets the performance bonuses.
Okay, great. And yeah, to speak to a little more like the early fight card, you can barely notice when you're in here and the fights get rolling that we're 12 hours ahead. So does that just reaffirm that you can go anywhere in the world and stick to the U.S. start times, and it still can be a very successful event locally?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's always an advantage to having an event in prime time locally. We know that. Pay-per-views, other than the one event we're going to have each year in Abu Dhabi, are not going to be changing time. It just makes so much sense, right? We've got to have a destination. We've got to have a very firm time that people know throughout the pay-per-view regions, US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, where if it's 10 p.m. in New York or 7 p.m. in Las Vegas, the pay-per-view is starting. So that's not going to change. But we will have from time to time, as we talked about, an event like in Abu Dhabi that's an off-prime for a North American audience. For us, we'll take events whenever we can get them. If there's an opportunity to come to Singapore with an event that starts with the doors opening at 6 and the first fight at 7, we will absolutely take it. I think, as you mentioned, the fact that we had a sold-out show tonight and people in the building very early just reaffirms the decision that it's okay to come at 6 in the morning. Not much different than Perth. Right? When we were in Perth a few years ago, sort of the same thing, early start time, early crowd, and excellent fights as well. So,
and just two questions on the fights themselves. Yuri Prochazka, the first UFC champion from the Czech Republic. What does that kind of mean to the company's presence in there? Can you give an idea what kind of market it is there for the UFC and how it elevates it, having Yuri win the belt?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a great new relationship with Digisport. And so for us, having a champion to support a new broadcast relationship and one that we feel is very promising for the next several years, that's going to go a long way. I think more than anything, like having a guy like with his style, it was super, I guess, a bit unpredictable. You didn't know what was going to happen. We were trying to explain to the main event to some of our partners from another country just what our thoughts were, how we were anticipating the fight to go, and it's really tough to tell. But what we did know is that there was going to be a number of really wild exchanges and some angles with knees and elbows, and I think that's what we got. I was amazed at his grappling. I mean, the number of reversals, and just when you think that someone had control and they were going to have a sustained period of time with top control, side control, whatever it was up against the cage, it would just change on a dime. So pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, and Jan Blachowicz tweeted out, let's do this fight in Europe. It would be the biggest fight that could be done there. I know it's very early to make a decision like that, but could you see that being a possibility to have, Poland versus Czech Republic, how significant that could be over there?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot of examples. It's easier, if first fight is at 7 a.m., it's a little easier than first fight being at 3 a.m. So depending on what time of year, it's probably main card starting around there. Was at Rumble, and Gustafsson was in Stockholm in the middle of the night. Bisping, maybe Hendo in Manchester in the middle of the night. So there are a few examples where it works, so maybe it's on Dana's radar.
And then just lastly for me, Joanna Jacek retires after the loss tonight. Can you just speak to what she's meant to this company over the years and just any thoughts you have on her career in this retirement?
It's a good question. Incredible champion. The common theme this week was what an incredible promoter she's been. And the number of content pieces with JJ and Zhang Weili, but driven obviously by her, the viewership for those almost surpassed other members of the card, which, I don't think would come as much of a surprise to you guys. You've spent time with her all week. You've spent time with her in her career. You know how expressive she is. She knows really what sells when it comes to dialing in some of the key sound bites that are necessary. She was also very gracious in defeat, I think, as you guys saw. Super emotional right off the bat. I think when she sort of turned over and sat up, you could see that there were tears welling up in her eyes. And she obviously was very complimentary of Zhang Weili. But she's been an incredible role model for, all athletes, that are up and coming in the UFC. I think she's really paved the way for women's MMA as sort of an early pioneer of that in the UFC. And we're going to miss her for sure.
Right in front of you. You mentioned there was a lot of Australians, obviously, in the crowd. A lot of them, even at the Q&A, they just wanted to speak to Rob. They thought he was going to fight, and they just kept their tickets. Obviously, you just had the big boxing match in Marvel Stadium like last weekend. So how soon are you guys going to look to go back in Australia with all these fighters?
Very soon. Yeah, we want to get back to Australia as soon as possible. Very important market for us, not only from a fan base perspective, number of either champions or top 5 ranked athletes that we've got. And we're really on a mission right now to get back on track internationally. We want to get back to all of the kind of key regions that are, pre-COVID, such an instrumental part of our international strategy. It's a tough situation, post-COVID, trying to find venues in cities for dates that work well for us has been a huge challenge. It's been a big lift for, Peter Dropic and the whole event development team. Mike and I were talking about this week, if you think about like over the course of 12 pay-per-views, you know that typically in March we're going to be in Vegas, as well as July, October, and December. Typically we're in New York in November. We like to find an event for Brazil. So finding an arena on the date that's important for us has been challenging with all of the music tours and the exhibitions, all the other content, all the other programming that, for the last few months has been booking out nights and venues that we want to go to. So as soon as we can, we will. I'm not really sure if there's room for a pay-per-view this year, just the way that schedule is played out, but I think early in 2023 would be excellent.
You mentioned trying to go back into markets that you were planning on going back to pre-COVID, but with this road to the UFC, you have fighters from India and Thailand and stuff, places you haven't been to yet. So can we expect fight cards there within the next few years?
Sorry, what country? India and which country?
Thailand.
And Thailand. Yeah, absolutely. I think in Thailand we're thinking about very seriously, sort of waiting. I think there's an arena being built that's either under construction already or will be built. So we might have to wait for that. But yeah, at some point in the next few years, I think the important thing for us is to get back, very as soon as possible to China, to Brazil, to Canada, to Australia, to other countries in Europe that we haven't been back to. We're getting to France in September for the first time, which is really exciting. But Scandinavia and Germany, all very important destinations for us with the fan base and the athletes that come from those countries. Yes, sir.
Right here. Right here.
Go ahead.
Yes, you mentioned, we were talking a little bit about the format with the road to the UFC, and can you talk a little bit about the plans? And you mentioned some of the places that you are looking to go back to. I would also like to hear a little bit your thoughts about an event in Africa that's also been talked about a lot. Any thoughts about that?
So a couple things. I think on Road to UFC, what Kevin Chang and the team in the Shanghai office have done to create this format, and with all different departments across our company, work to execute that. I think people are very encouraged by this round one, these episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4 that happened this week, Thursday, Friday. Obviously, there could be an application for this show in various parts of the world. We could do one in Brazil in a second. We could do one in Europe. We could do one through, I think Australia could hold one on its own, maybe even the Middle East. So, I'm not really sure how we're going to prioritize. I think the first order of business is for us to finish this series. We still have the next few episodes, which we're aiming to produce at some point in the fall. I'm not really sure yet. Maybe September, October, November. And then have winners sorted, hopefully by the end of the year, maybe early next year. Not really sure at this point. But that's super important for us to deliver for all of our Asian broadcasters, and specifically Migu, for whom the show is built, in prime time, and really have a celebration of athletes from North Asia all the way down to Southeast Asia. So important format for us. When it comes to Africa, yeah, I mean, it's a destination. You saw the NFL talking about some of the activations they're going to bring to, I think they were going to Rwanda? I forget which country they were going to. Anyway, we've got a few different destinations we've been working with a few parties on to get a better understanding of what's required to have an event there. But it's still going to be a late 2023 thing at the earliest, I believe. Thanks.
Just a follow-up on the road to the UFC. We had one Swedish girl fighting, Josephine Knutsson, that she got the win. How will we know if she gets a UFC contract? Is there any time frame, or if it's just something that the crew have to look and kind of ponder on?
I think once Mick gets back to the U.S. and sits back down with Dana and Sean and Hunter, we'll probably have a better idea.
Yeah, so just to make sure, 50K, the performance bonuses, everybody got 50K?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Why?
Except for the Bitcoin, except for the crypto.com
Sure.
bonuses.
What went through the decision to actually award all the guys that finish their fights with performance bonuses instead of just the regular 2 guys?
So, I don't know. Performance bonuses are typically driven by Dana. I think he confers with Sean and Mick and Hunter, and they figure out who they want to give bonuses to. Here's what I can tell you is that at various points of the night, I went over to chat with Mick just to get his impression on what was going on with some of these fights and what was his perspective on a few different things. And he kept saying, like, one of the difficult things is going to be trying to figure out who gets the performance bonuses. So I'm sure it was a combination of a variety of things. One, overall, just the general success of the card. Number 2, all of the finishes were pretty spectacular finishes. So if you guys dig down and try to figure out who should be getting the performance bonuses, it's not an easy task. I expect it was a confluence of different things, and almost a celebration of being in Singapore for the 4th time, and having a pay-per-view internationally for the first time other than Abu Dhabi.
And you mentioned we have to find a date for Brazil. What are the plans? Do you have a plan, like any estimate this year still? And is Charles involved in it? Is Charles going to be defending in Brazil?
So I can't comment on Charles because I just don't know. We'll have to ask Dana about that. We're aiming to be in Brazil at some point before the end of the year. All the challenges that I described before exist not only here in Singapore, not only in North America, Brazil as well. It's tough to get into venues. We're going to be in Brazil as soon as we can. I'm hoping that it's this fall. I'm also hoping that we've got an event there early next year.